My name is Morgan Taylor, and I watched from the back of the conference room as Ryan took the stage to accept an award for my work. The room was filled with champagne flutes and soft applause, rows of executives in tailored suits smiling as he cradled the crystal trophy like it was his own brainchild. The Quarterly Innovation Award, company-wide recognition for the project that had saved us over $4 million a year. My team has been incredible, he said into the microphone, his voice echoing against glass walls. This project wouldn't have been possible without the support I received from leadership and my peers. No mention of me. Not even a passing nod. I stood near the espresso bar, holding a plastic flute of lukewarm sparkling cider, watching him grin for photos, shake hands, pose with department heads. Someone even clapped him on the back and said, "You're going places, Ryan." I bit the inside of my cheek and took a slow sip. 6 months ago, I started building the algorithm in my apartment after hours, just a rough prototype, nothing polished. It began with a question about redundant load scheduling across distribution centers. Then I mapped the inefficiencies. Then I trained a model. Then I iterated. And when no one else seemed interested in solving it, I kept going. Late nights, weekends, dozens of rejected meeting invites with subject lines like idea for supply optimization, draft demo. Most were ignored. A few got vague responses. I kept building anyway. 3 weeks ago, when I finally had a working prototype, I shared it with Ryan during what I thought was a casual peer review. We had been working on the same general initiative, and I wanted feedback, someone to double-check the logic before I pitched it upstairs. The next day, I was out sick. Flu. Fever. Gone for 36 hours. When I came back, Ryan had already demoed the model to leadership, pitched the architecture, presented slides I had drafted but never sent. The project had been approved. He had been assigned as lead. I thought maybe it was a misunderstanding. I asked him about it, calmly. He smiled and said, "Yeah, I hope you're okay with it." The team was excited. I knew we had to move fast. I went to our manager, laid it all out. She listened. Then she said, "You'll get your chance to shine, Morgan. Don't make this about credit. Be a team player." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't quit. Instead, I did what I do best. I documented everything. I started that same evening, sitting at my kitchen counter with my laptop open, surrounded by half-empty takeout containers and a quiet that only comes when you know you've been dismissed, erased. The first thing I did was export the entire commit history from my private GitHub repository, the one I used for drafts and backups when I was still experimenting with the algorithm. Every push, every pull request, every update, timestamped, tagged, with my name, my account. Nothing forged, nothing altered. Just data. Pure factual, untouchable data. Then came the email trails. I'd forgotten how many times I'd reached out to my team, including Ryan, with versions of the model or conceptual diagrams attached. Some were ignored. Some got one-liner replies. But they were all there, date-stamped and complete. I created a folder, sequence proof, and dropped every relevant email inside. Next, I opened the early presentation deck I had designed weeks before Ryan's surprise pitch. The one with color-coded flowcharts and notes in the speaker's comments that said things like, "Find better metric examples," and flag delivery loopbacks. The slides? Identical. Down to the misplaced axis labels and the draft phrasing I'd meant to polish later. I found the original Jupyter notebooks, the code annotations where I had written things like, "Need to revisit these weightings if we scale, and try modeling this with separate zones." He'd even used my typos. That's what finally made me laugh. Quiet, joyless laughter over lo mein and ginger tea. He didn't even clean it up, just lifted the whole damn thing like a college kid grabbing someone else's essay off the shared drive. That night, I stayed up until 2 a.m., assembling a full timeline. I color-coded it like I would for a client investigation. Commit log in blue, email trails in green, code diffs in orange, metadata screenshots in red. At the top, I added a cover page. Project origin, supply chain ML model, internal attribution audit, prepared by Morgan Taylor. I didn't tell anyone about it, not my mentor, not my colleagues, not even the one friend on my team who had raised an eyebrow when Ryan's name got top billing. I knew how this worked. If I went public with it, I'd be labeled bitter, political, difficult, not a team player. The same phrase they'd used to keep me quiet in that little one-on-one meeting with HR when I first raised concerns. I knew they'd tell me it wasn't the time, that I was making things worse for myself, that I was risking professional relationships. So I waited. Waited for the right moment. The room. The eyes that mattered. And while I waited, I sharpened the story, because that's what people like Ryan never understand. You can steal the credit, but you can't rewrite the origin. The award ceremony was held on a Thursday afternoon in one of the glass-paneled conference rooms overlooking downtown San Francisco. They'd rearranged the space, brought in rental chairs, a catering table, and those cheap acrylic name tags that never sit straight. It was performative, like most company culture events. Just enough champagne to feel special, not enough to get anyone sued. I stood in the back near the refreshments table. No one noticed me. That was the point. I watched Ryan pose for photos beside Elaine Winters, our CEO. He looked polished in that way men do when they feel untouchable. Fresh haircut, custom-fit blazer, and that smug little smirk that had started showing up more and more since the project launched. Elaine was giving a short speech about innovation, thanking the minds who push this company forward, and praising the algorithm that had transformed our logistics models and saved the company millions. Ryan smiled through it all, held the crystal trophy up for the cameras, said the expected things. This project was a team effort. I'm just grateful for the chance to make an impact. We do our best work when we support each other. It was like listening to a press release read aloud by a mirror. He didn't say my name, not once. The applause came easily. It always does when people aren't the ones being erased. Afterward, the room buzzed with executive mingling. I saw department heads shaking hands, smiling politely. Ryan doing laps, riding the high. I waited. Quiet, still. When Elaine stepped away from the crowd to answer a call near the hallway, I followed. She was tucking her phone into her purse when I approached. Miss Winters, I said, voice steady. Congratulations on another strong quarter. She turned to me, polite but distant, searching my badge for context. Thank you. Morgan, right? I nodded. I work in the data modeling team. The supply chain algorithm was part of my side stream development. Her brows lifted slightly, just enough to register curiosity. I know this probably isn't the moment, I continued, reaching into my bag, but I've prepared something for the company archives, a technical timeline of the project's development, just for accuracy. I handed her the sealed folder. The cover page bore my name. No threats, no accusations, just facts. Plain, quiet truth. She took it without comment, flipping briefly through the first page. She didn't say anything. I leaned in slightly, my voice low. I'm not looking to cause drama, I said, but I believe in what this company says it stands for. Integrity, ownership, recognition. I thought this was the right place for that belief. She looked up at me then, really looked. Her eyes weren't cold. They were calculating, curious, measuring weight. Thank you, she said simply. I'll review it. I nodded once. I appreciate your time. Then I turned, walked back into the crowd, and left before dessert. I didn't look at Ryan again. I didn't need to. 2 days later, I was called to the executive floor. No explanation. Just a calendar invite from Elaine's executive assistant marked private, 11 a.m., 11:45 a.m., CEO office. I stared at the screen for a solid 30 seconds, then clicked accept. I spent the next morning reviewing my notes, but I already knew there was nothing to prepare. The evidence had been clean, organized, undeniable. Either they'd acknowledge it or they wouldn't. At 10:55, I stepped into the mirrored elevator, badge clipped to my collar, folder under my arm, just in case. The executive floor was quiet in a different way. Less keyboard clatter, more expensive silence. When the elevator opened, I was greeted by the assistant, who stood and gestured. They're ready for you. They? I followed her down the glass hallway to a conference room I'd never been inside before. Walls of wood and matte steel, a long table already occupied by 3 people. Elaine Winters, head of R&D, and the company's general counsel. My heartbeat stayed steady. Elaine motioned for me to sit. No small talk. On the table was my folder, open, marked with sticky notes. Someone had read every page. Elaine folded her hands. First, she said, "Thank you. You handled this with more grace than most." I said nothing. She continued. We reviewed the documentation. It's clear the work originated with you. We also checked the version logs, metadata, and timestamps. It's airtight. Head of R&D nodded slightly. It's not just accurate, it's brilliant. I blinked. That word didn't come around often. Elaine leaned forward. We'd like to offer you something. She slid a single-page proposal across the table. Lead AI Innovation Team, reporting directly to VP of Engineering. $42,000 salary increase. 20,000 stock options. Signing bonus. Authority to build your own sub-team. I kept my face still, but I felt something shift, deep in my chest, somewhere between disbelief and relief. This wasn't just a correction, it was a pivot. Elaine spoke again. We're also reviewing our attribution processes. Quiet contributions like yours should never go unseen. You've proven not just technical ability, but professionalism and restraint. That matters here. I nodded. Thank you. She paused. Ryan's award has been retracted internally. The announcement will frame it as a team adjustment. No public shaming, but the record will reflect the truth. That was fine by me. I didn't want a trophy. I wanted what was mine. Real recognition, authority, space to lead. I stood, shook each of their hands, and walked out with the offer in my hand. As the elevator doors closed behind me, I allowed myself one small, satisfied exhale. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't made threats. I had submitted a folder. And they had listened. The announcement went out the following Monday. It was short, neutral, strategically phrased. Like all internal communications in companies that know exactly how to sound transparent without actually naming what happened. We're pleased to share that effective immediately, Morgan Taylor has been appointed as lead of our new AI innovation team. Her work in machine learning has directly contributed to operational savings and strategic growth in our supply chain division. We look forward to the leadership she'll bring to this next chapter of our R&D evolution. No mention of Ryan, no awkward revisions or apologies, just a clean handoff of credit, quietly, unmistakably corrected. People noticed. They didn't say much, but they noticed. My inbox filled with brief congratulations, the kind that come without emojis or exclamation points. A few people stopped by my desk with polite smiles and well-deserved murmurs. One even said, "Took them long enough." And Ryan? He didn't make eye contact the rest of the week. At lunch that Friday, I walked past his desk and saw the award was gone. Not packed up, not replaced, just gone. His name no longer on the internal wiki page for the project. He'd been reassigned to a lower-profile maintenance pipeline. It was a graceful descent, corporate exile with a polite face. I didn't gloat. That wasn't the point. I had work to do. The AI innovation team started with just 3 of us. 2 engineers I'd worked with before and a new hire I requested personally. We were given a space on the 2nd floor, modest but ours. I rewrote the onboarding materials myself. Made sure attribution would never be an afterthought again. Everyone's commits tracked. Idea origination documented. Praise distributed publicly, not hoarded in silence. For the first time in my career, I felt like I was building something on solid ground. Something with my name on it, not scribbled at the end, not buried in the appendix, but at the front where it belonged. One evening, well past office hours, I sat alone in our new workspace. Just me, a glowing monitor, and the quiet hum of code compiling. And I thought about how close I'd come to walking away, how tempting it had been to just accept what they told me. Be a team player. Be a team player. It's not about credit. You'll get your moment. But moments don't come. You have to make them, you have to write them. Prove them, stamp your name into the metadata. So when the time comes and someone tries to take what's yours, you have the receipts. And a quiet room full of decision-makers who suddenly remember your name. A few weeks later, I found myself back in that same conference room, only this time I was standing at the front. It wasn't an award ceremony. It was a quarterly leadership meeting, executives, directors, team leads. I'd been asked to present a roadmap for our AI innovation stream, where we were heading, what we were solving, and how it aligned with the company's long-term vision. I wasn't nervous, I was ready. I clicked through slides outlining use cases in fraud detection, real-time logistics forecasting, and energy-efficient server orchestration. I explained how each model would be built with transparency, auditability, and cross-functional input at every phase. When I finished, there was a pause. The good kind, the kind that means people are thinking. Then came the questions, sharp, respectful, interested. Elaine, seated near the center, gave a small nod after I wrapped up the last answer. "Thank you, Morgan," she said. "Clear, strategic, and exactly the kind of thinking we want shaping the future." I nodded once. "Appreciate it." Afterward, as I gathered my laptop and notes, one of the VPs walked over. "You know," he said casually, "a few of us wondered where that project really came from." I glanced at him, calm. "Now you know." He smiled. "We do, loud and clear." I left the room, past the glass wall overlooking the skyline, and returned to my floor where my team was already whiteboarding their next sprint. The energy was different now. Focused, collaborative, and they looked at me not just as a peer, but as a leader. And Ryan? He transferred departments 2 weeks later. I didn't hear where. I didn't ask. Sometimes silence is the last page. That Friday, I stopped by the cafe down the block, ordered my usual, and sat by the window with my tablet open. I reviewed the latest progress report, annotated a few notes, then clicked on the folder I had labeled Attribution Package, Closed. I scrolled once, then I deleted it, not because I regretted it, because it had served its purpose. I didn't need to hold on to proof anymore. Everyone knew the truth now. And more importantly, I had already used it to build something better. That's what real wins look like, not a trophy on a shelf, but a future no one can take from you. Months passed. The AI innovation team grew from 3 people to 9. We delivered 2 pilots that were later adopted company-wide. One of them even got picked up in a Fortune article about emerging tech inside supply chains. My name listed, plainly, as the architect. No ceremony, no drama, just quiet acknowledgement, the kind that lasts longer than applause. One afternoon, I walked past the lobby and caught a glimpse of something new. A small glass plaque mounted on the wall beneath the words Core Values, Integrity, Impact, Innovation. My name wasn't on it, but I smiled anyway. Because I knew. Not just what I'd done, but what I hadn't let them do to me. I hadn't let them bury me in team spirit. I hadn't swallowed the lie that credit doesn't matter. I hadn't burned the place down either. I'd simply proved it. 1 line of code, 1 email, 1 quiet, undeniable folder, and the rest unfolded on its own. That Friday evening, I stayed a little later at the office. The floor was quiet, sunlight slipping low through the blinds. I sat at my desk and stared at a blank notepad for a moment, then wrote something I hadn't let myself write in a long time. You didn't just survive, you changed the room, and no one could take that from you again. Later that night, over dinner with a friend, she asked me, "Would you do it the same way again?" I thought for a second, then nodded. "Absolutely," I said. "Next time I might even make the folder thicker." We both laughed, because we knew what that meant. Revenge isn't always a headline. Sometimes it's a promotion, a locked cabinet with your name on it, a code base no one dares to alter, a team that calls you boss without rolling their eyes. Sometimes the loudest justice is the kind no one sees coming, until they look back and realize who wrote the first line. And the last one. And that's how I learned that sometimes silence doesn't mean surrender. It just means you're saving your voice for the moment that matters. Ever had someone take credit for your work? Share your story in the comments. Like, subscribe to EN Reddit Story for more true tales of quiet justice, and send this to someone who always keeps the receipts.